Hi, this is Kimberly. You may not think so, but I am a very, very busy bee working on some outstanding material for you. And because of my ADD, I flit around from one project to another. Many started and nothing done, such as my life, my house, my crocheting, my plastic canvas projects. Oh God, I used to love that. I want to love it again. And last but not least, my YouTube channel and any other project I endeavor. Many started, nothing done. One thing I've been pondering as I look at my YouTube analytics is I have two types of viewers, just when it comes to my intros, that is. Those that only listen to my intro and those that skip the intro and go straight to the video that I have put together, that I have spent much time putting together. Both parts are hard work. I've put a lot of time and thought into anything I do, and I'm not going to skimp on my YouTube channel. I do give you my best, and I don't just throw some shit together to pump out videos. This that I do in this hell spell, spit it out, Kimberly. Do in this video and several more parts that are to come is I'm going to string together my intros that I've done and all of the other parts where I was yakking where I yacked and ran my mouth throughout the video. And I'm doing this because many people have actually said they would listen to me reading the phone book, and I thought about reading the phone book, but they don't put out those big thick ones like they used to. I'm a very literal person, can you tell? But this will not only encompass Watts videos, but all of the other subjects I've done, such as McNabb and Bell, T-Stout, Gannon-Stout, Joseph and Jennifer Rosenbaum, and just any other things I've done. I'm going to start at the beginning and stop stuttering, Kimberly. You sound like that fucking Watts dude. So call it recycling or whatever you please. However, please know that behind the scene, Kimberly is hard at work like a little gerbil running on a little wheel. Isn't that cute? And working on other time-consuming videos. The ones that take a long time to put together, I'll work on them, put it aside, work on it, put it aside. And while I work on said videos and clean my house and host company, sleep, and deal with what Shanann would say is my health challenges, but they're not necessarily in the order that of importance of the crap I was blathering on a moment ago. I'm starting to forget what I was trying to say. That I will deal with these things. And one more thing, and it's very, very sad. Someone, a very young person, only 31 years old, suddenly passed away in Mr. Kimberly's family. So we will be going to a funeral. I don't know when. She just died this morning. I will be gone for a little bit to tend to that. We will have to travel out of town. As a quick review of what this video will be and some more to come while I work on projects, which are more than there's like quick videos, there's regular videos, and then there's projects. I'm going to be working on projects and other stuff. I don't know. You know what? Just never you mind what I'm doing. It's none of your damn business. Good God Almighty, Glenda. That's rude as hell. Please forgive me. It depends on my fucking mood, okay? And please be patient with how green I was in the beginning. Please don't make a rash decision to unsubscribe or go away or something, piss off because of how horrible I was in the beginning. But it is what it is, right? Right. While I'm gone, and as a quick review of what this is supposed to be, I'll try to make this more understandable in one sentence. I am posting videos in which I have spoken for those that just wish to hear me run my mouth, starting from beginning of my channel to present. Much love and peace. Thank you for listening and take care. Hi, this is Kimberly. If this video seems familiar to you, it's because I'm doing a re-upload of the original one. The original that I did had very bad sound quality. I'm deleting that and going to upload this in its place. Thank you.
I'm going to be reading the foreword to All My Broken Pieces by Cindy Watts and Kathleen Hewtson. It's a rough draft manuscript that was leaked onto Reddit a few weeks back. This is the foreword, and it begins. I decided to write this book after several months of observing the Chris Watts case, not because it was an interesting case, though it is, but more so because there never seemed to be any clear motive. I don't believe that anyone without a violent past or some sign of mental illness would simply turn around one day and murder a pregnant woman and two little girls just because they met somebody new. That didn't wash for me. I've written and researched strange crimes before, and this definitely looked like one. There was a pretty obviously strained marriage and lots of questions, many of them both medical and financial. The crime itself was the very worst that can be committed, killing children, and for that, to my mind at least, there are never mitigating circumstances, except I guess insanity. Was he insane? Was she? Or could it have been drug use? Some kind of amphetamine might cause this, and what was in those patches? Some miracle weight loss because he looked astounding in his before and after photos. Or it was simply speed which explained the weight loss, lack of sleep, as reported by him and his girlfriend, and his seemingly over-the-top energy. Amphetamine rage makes people do the most horrible things. I remember the Jeffrey MacDonald case, pregnant woman and two little girls of exactly the same ages. The late writer Joe McGinnis had, I thought, proved in the seminal Fatal Vision beyond any doubt that he had indeed killed his family, as had the prosecutor in North Carolina. North Carolina, Fayetteville, so close to where Christopher and Shanann Watts grew up and met. Odd that. Yes, it was similar to Jeffrey MacDonald, wasn't it? The handsome young doctor who had no history of violence, but had in one terrible hour destroyed all their lives, his included. Why? The only answer that made sense, if that is the right word, were those diet pills, and diet pills, at least back then, were amphetamines. Could this tragedy have occurred again? Maybe so. You can buy anything on the internet, and try as I might, I can't find a lab test on the ingredients in those patches he was covered in. Well, so was she. Was that what happened? Then again, I don't think she looked like she could have been using speed. She wasn't fat. She wasn't thin. She looked normal. But then there were all those illnesses and maybe an elective neck surgery, and at least some of those must have led to opiate use, and that's really just heroin, and people don't always behave normally on heroin either. So, okay, drug use seems a serious possibility. I'll look into it, I decided. The medical records are sealed, but old-fashioned investigating just might turn up some proof. We'll see. Then there were the respective families. That's always a horrible thing to witness, whether you know them or not. The grief, the endless pain, and in the last couple of decades, that pain is always made a million times worse by having your every single act since the day you were born scrutinized by millions of people on the internet, along with the usual media, and that's just for the parents of the victims. They don't get a pass either. It's the wild, wild west on the net, and since all of us can know everything we usually want to. Then there were his parents. They looked so nice and terribly devastated. They looked lost. Did the son they loved so much and thought, as all parents must, that they knew so well, could he do this awful thing? How could he have? Why? I saw that they were being tried and were losing in the court of public opinion. This aspect was also both interesting and puzzling to me. For nearly the same time that the Watts family was imploding into violent murder in Colorado, a beautiful woman and her two fairly breathtaking young daughters were shot and killed in a $1 million home in San Antonio, Texas. As in the Watts case, the possible suspect of the crimes, mother came forward and spoke of her love for her son, her certainty that he never could have done this thing. Funnily, that also happened in the MacDonald case long ago, but no one hated Mrs. MacDonald for her loyalty to her son. No one seemed to feel that way about Mrs. Wheeler in Texas either, save maybe, possibly the family and friends of Nicole Olson and her daughters. It's odd, isn't it, who we choose to judge and who we don't. I wonder why this mother was singled out for so much hatred, for doing what most mothers do, are in fact expected to do to love their children no matter what. There were people who even seemed to think the Watts family did not love or miss their small granddaughters because they still loved their son and were asking questions. It was obvious from the beginning that neither of them were fond of Shanann. Well, if we're being honest, few mother and daughters-in-law are all that close. But this one seemed worse than most because his parents weren't at the wedding. Then there was Nutgate. Most daughters-in-law don't make loads of Facebook postings, which basically accuse mothers-in-law of attempting to murder their grandchildren. But this one had. Wow, yikes. There was, I knew, quite a backstory there, and I wanted to know what it was. I also was beginning to feel sorry for Chris Watts' family. They hadn't killed anyone, allegedly or in real life. All they had done, as far as I could see, was keep loving their own child. And don't all parents do that, no matter what you're supposed to? The other crime they were committing was not saying anything about their grief at Shanann. So, okay, I thought they aren't being hypocrites. After all, they were only a couple of weeks beyond the attempted murder allegations of Nutgate when the real murders occurred. People sanctify the dead a lot, and that's normal, I guess, unless it's Hitler or somebody. On the other hand, if someone you have disliked heartily for a long time dies, someone maybe you had been in a terrible fight with, say because they called you an attempted child killer on the net, dies, is anything but pretty gross hypocrisy to go on TV and tell people how much you love them and how much you miss them? To me, the answer is no. Okay, fine, moving on. Now I had other questions. What is it like to be a completely average, nice, hard-working American family one day and become America's most hated family, a warning to young children the next day? To say it would suck is probably the biggest understatement on planet Earth. I decided to talk to them if I could. I wrote a letter, and after a while Cindy wrote me back. It was such a polite, sad little letter that it broke my heart. Politeness in the face of all that, and to a writer, wow. Over the next few months we began to write more and then talk. She was even kinder and sadder and more terribly lost than she appeared on TV. I spoke to her husband Ronnie, a sweet, old-school, hard-working Southern gentleman, and then to her really wonderful daughter, and I started to not just like them, but to feel protectively about these nice people who, let's face it, had done nothing wrong. So there you are, the reasons for the book and what I'm hoping to find out over the course of it. But it's not just my book, it's Cindy's too. She needs a place to tell her story and to explain her feelings and history with Son and Shanann and her granddaughters. She needs a place to try and explain and find out for herself what really happened, or try. Because Shanann and Celeste and Bella are gone now. They are beyond our questions and beyond caring about our judgments now. This book is for the living. Their stories about before and after. Kathleen McKenna, Hewtson, San Francisco, California, July 2019. All My Broken Pieces, a story of motherhood, love, and loss. This part is by Cindy. It's a foreword. This is allegedly Cindy Watts' book, found on Reddit a couple of days ago. And she starts off, I don't think even once, not when I was a little girl even, that I expected or wanted everyone in our country to know my name. Maybe every little girl dreams of being a princess and now an internet star, but they didn't have internet stars when I was a kid, and they don't have any princesses or stars at all where I've always lived, except for those in the sky. If anyone had been interested or asked me 10 years ago what I wanted, I would have told them I already had it. A good marriage to a fine man and 2 wonderful children. By back then, I have to qualify and say that I mean back before my son married a woman that was wrong for him and began to lose himself, and we began to lose him as well. Our pain started then, and over the next 8 years, our lives tilted downhill and became sadder, more complicated, and filled with growing amounts of unwanted trauma and fear, until we finally ended up here at the bottom, in a damaged, grieving heap, broken into pieces. 2 of our granddaughters are dead. The young woman who was our daughter-in-law is dead, and her family is devastated as well. Our boy is in many ways as lost to us as though he were dead. Our family is in rubble, and the whole world seems to know our names and hate us. We just exist and try to breathe through permanently constricted throats, trying to find a way, any way at all, to go on living for what we have left, who we have left, including each other, in our new reality, which is simply moment-by-moment wreckage. I am not writing this book to ask for sympathy. I'm writing it because there are always three sides to every story: hers, his, and the truth. Maybe I cannot know the truth any more than all the millions of strangers worldwide who seem to think they do, but I know some things. I know our family. I know my son. Or maybe I don't, and I wish to gain understanding of him and his actions through this process. And to a degree, I know the story of the marriage that led us all here. I want to tell people about these things I know at least. As to what I hope will come of it, well, I don't hope for much anymore, but no matter what you think of me or us, remember this. Chris is still my child, and if you have ever had and loved children, then you wish to hold them and comfort them when they are damaged. You wish to make it right. I can't make this right, and I may never hold my son again, never able to comfort him. I can tell my story, though, or my truth, if you will, and hope for understanding. This is the story of us before, during, and after the slide. It's the story of our son meeting and marrying Shanann and what occurred during their marriage. It's the story of our granddaughters as we know them, or as we knew them, and our son's life during those years and their aftermath. This is about us, a group of ordinary people as we actually are, and not as those who think they know us, or might wish us to be. Because if what they say of us were true, then something like this could never happen to you or someone you love, and that reassurance I can't give anyone anymore. As painful as the words of strangers are, those who know nothing of us but feel they do, I hold no grudges. I might have thought the same as they do before, when it wasn't us. Before, meaning before my family became one of those that people read about and shake their heads over, and then immediately run to their laptops and say such things as, "I guess I would have drowned him at birth." Or if that wasn't personal enough, they speculate about whether it was me or my husband Ronnie who is the psychopath, and whose horrible parenting, or genes, take your pick, or choose both, has twisted up our boy so bad that he was always destined to grow up to become a family annihilator. The worst, of course, the very worst, and I think what truly drove this book, is the people who have written that my beautiful young grandson is going to grow up to be another Chris. God help you to find more kindness for an innocent boy, and maybe to find in these pages the answer that there aren't any real answers. I mean, as to how this tragedy happened, or what could have stopped it, because you can't see if we could have, we would have. Please, if nothing else, believe that. I'd like to thank you, the reader, for listening to my story and for giving me your time as I travel this road again. Chris was really a good kid. It's not just me who says so. Everyone who ever met and knew him said so too. He was very gentle and quiet, never caused us a single problem. He was an honor student who loved sports and made a nice life for himself in Mooresville, North Carolina, after high school and then NASCAR Tech. Then he met Shanann. We have chapter 1 now, All My Broken Pieces, a story of motherhood and love and loss. Chapter 1. Everybody talks about their dreams for their children, but I think I can safely say that there is only one that we parents have. We just want them to be happy. Of course, there is no bigger dream, and in many cases nothing harder to achieve, and the difficult thing is, we really can't do one thing about helping them to be happy. That's mostly down to luck, I think. Our boy's luck ran out pretty early on. I don't think I worried about him as much when he was little. He was such a good kid, and in high school he played baseball and got straight A's, so I didn't have any reason to worry, but I did anyway, because he was so incredibly shy and quiet, and I didn't want him to be lonely or missing out on all the silly adventures that we parents complain about but expect anyway, and then later shake our heads over and laugh. He was terribly serious at an age when most kids aren't. Our daughter was so busy and overscheduled with friends and boyfriends and keeping AT&T in business and pushing our rules that it was hard not to notice the differences between them as teenagers. Still, what more could I have reasonably wanted than a son who did all the right things and just seemed to enjoy going to see NASCAR races with his dad while maintaining high grades and playing sports. And yet, okay, I'd hear from my mother, who the kids called Oma, about the school pickups. I was working, and so she would go and collect the kids for me after school. She'd drive up to get Chris first at his elementary school, and promptly out he would come, my sweet boy, ambling out the door, giving her his quiet smile and saying thank you as he got into the car to wait with her for his sister. Wait, they did too. Sarah was so popular. By the way, let me stop it here. For whatever reason, Chris Watts' sister, Jamie, her name in this book has been changed to Sarah. So, wait, they did too. Sarah was so popular that it could take her a good half hour or more after school to say goodbye to all of her friends that she wouldn't get a chance to talk to by phone in an hour or so. It used to drive my mom crazy. Both my kids were born kind. It's just that Sarah never met a stranger in her life, and Chris, well, he liked people just fine, but he came out reserved and quiet, just like his dad, and he stayed that way. He had a few close friends, and I guess if I wondered how it would go for him later, and I did because I'm a mother. I hope that somewhere out there ahead of him was a sweet girl who would think like I had about Ronnie and value him for what he was. She would, I hope, simply enjoy being with my sweet, good, hard-working boy and build a life with him. With Sarah, I knew she would have her pick and pick right when she was ready, and she did. She went to college, fell in love with Steve, married him, and started her career, and living happily ever after in the usual small starter house. With Chris, I didn't think so much as hope for the best. He was so shy, in fact, that a girl had to ask him to senior prom. So I think if I can remember correctly, I guess I knew he'd have to meet a pretty outgoing girl to bring him out of his shell. I knew that when he did, he'd be completely devoted to her and try his very best to make her happy. And since he is so much like his dad, I figured her chances for that were better than average. After high school, Chris, who like his dad could fix anything mechanical that had been invented, and set his sights on the NASCAR Academy, and so off he went at 18, and after he completed his schooling there, he was hired by a Ford dealership in Monroeville. He's always been a hard worker, and he liked the work too, and we had raised both our kids to be careful about money. Sorry, one more break here. Every once in a while there's like some bad grammar and stuff, and it'll kind of trip me up. And sometimes I just trip up because I'm me. Okay, let me start over. After he was hired by a Ford dealership in Monroeville. He's always been a hard worker, and he liked the work too, and we had raised both our kids to be careful about money. For a while there, it seemed like he had learned it too, because he started right off by saving up about every cent that didn't go to rent and food. And before too long, he had bought a brand new car, a Ford Mustang, and he only owed $8,000 on it, while managing to put another $11,000 into savings, which is pretty good for a young man of 24. Ronnie and I are careful people, so nothing about Chris's finances surprised us then. In what spare time Chris had, he continued his lifelong enjoyment of exercise and being outside, and coming down to visit us and his sister and our new family member, Sarah's little boy named Wyatt. And of course, he took every opportunity to go see NASCAR with his dad. I was glad of that too. I love Ronnie, but those races are too loud for me, and I don't think I was missed. Those two loved hanging out together. Our family stayed close, and we saw a lot of Chris despite the 3-hour drive from Monroeville to Spring Lake. He and Wyatt had become best friends too, and Uncle Chris' maid was always a favorite visitor for him, and Sarah and Steve were expecting their second baby, which we were all overjoyed about. There were no commas there. That was hard to read. I think we were all happy in that simple way of being so without noticing it. I guess by that I mean things were on track. Our kids were doing well, and their entries into adulthood had almost been a paint-by-numbers deal. School, jobs, marriage, and a baby for our oldest, and Chris was so young that we weren't at all concerned that he hadn't met anyone special yet. Then we got a call from Chris that he had in fact met a girl and she was special and he wanted us to meet her too. Sarah, who is by far the most outgoing member of our family, decided to host a barbecue. Nothing big, just a casual little thing with a few friends and family. We weren't nervous exactly, but we were a little surprised because Chris had sheepishly announced to us that his new girlfriend was 40. And since he was only 24, well, I can say that I thought I was definitely curious. So I can't say what I thought, but I was definitely curious though. When Chris arrived, it was with a young, pretty, dark-haired woman. Her name was Shanann King, and she didn't look anywhere near 40. Ronnie didn't seem to be bothered by it, but Sarah and I did a little whispering in the kitchen, wondering why Chris had told us that she was so much older than she obviously was. Finally, we asked him. He grinned and brought Shanann over, and they laughed and said it had been her idea, and wasn't it hilarious? We laughed too, but to this day I never have figured out why she wanted us to think she was so much older. Still, Chris seemed to like her a lot, and she was very friendly and outgoing, and who gets every joke anyway? So we weren't worried. I suppose we were happy he had found someone he liked enough to want to introduce us to, and she seemed to have a lot going for her, an extraordinary amount of things actually. She, as it turned out, only a year older than Chris, and she was pretty and very outgoing, which probably was an excellent thing since he was so shy. She could bring him out of his shell, is I guess what I thought. Remember, please, I'm trying hard here to look back as honestly as I can. All of us have to keep doing that to remember how it was, not how it became if we were going to attempt this story. She was pretty and funny, and in the beginning it seemed like she wanted all of us to be friends and to get to know each other, and well, those normal things. Also, we're a family that believes in hard work and trying to do the best you can. And when we met her, she was driving a Cadillac Escalade from the company she said she worked for, Dirty South, and then there was her house. Now, a lot of money and big houses don't mean anything to me personally. I don't want to live anywhere but in our little 1,100 square foot house until the day I die. But I know those things are important to a lot of people, and that's fine. Hard work, whether it's your own personal satisfaction, as well as putting a roof over your head, no matter how small or large, seems to me to make people feel good about themselves. And the roof Shanann had put over her head with her hard work was a big one. In fact, it looked like a mansion. It was, as Sarah commented to me, the biggest and grandest house she had ever seen, then or now. It had 3 formal living rooms, for heaven's sakes, and each one of them every room had the most beautiful furniture I had ever seen, and all of them. It sat right beside a lake, and there was a boathouse too. For the people who lived in that subdivision, I'm guessing a boat wasn't out of the question. Her bedroom was massive and beautiful. She had these little clocks and things that she had ordered from Switzerland. It was perfect, like a castle, and she said that she had bought and paid for it with her job from Dirty South by the age of 25. She told me, in fact, that when she had approached the builders and told them what she wanted, they didn't take her a bit seriously until she opened up a suitcase she had brought and pulled out $20,000 in cash. You had to be impressed no matter what. I saw years later that her brother Frankie said that she was always a hard worker and she was making $500,000 a year, and to maintain that house I think you would have to be pulling that in. Like I said, she was also driving a company car from Dirty South, though she had told Sarah that she was either taking a break from there or had quit. Sarah isn't positive which, and she said that she was working as a nanny at the time. She also mentioned that she had worked at Gap previously, so I don't have any idea how she was managing it all. She didn't come from any more wealth than Chris had, just nice ordinary people. And if she won the lottery, which I could believe she didn't mention it, she would have. Because right from the start, Shanann pretty much said everything she thought and told us a lot about her life. We heard right away about her lupus and fibromyalgia and her migraines. The endometriosis and celiac disease was brought up later. She told us she was divorced from a man who she had put through school, and that he had been physically unattractive, and despite that he had also cheated on her. She also told us that she had recently been in a single car accident and had hurt her neck. She might have said that she had gone through the windshield too, I can't be sure. She seemed to be healthy and happy all the times we saw her, so I suppose she was just a very strong person. At any rate, despite some confusion on how she had managed the house or where she worked, I think she just dazzled Chris. Sure, he was supporting himself and doing really well, especially for his age, but she was living in a house that cost nearly $500,000 and had furniture and art inside that was probably worth half that again, and her car was an Escalade after all. So if she had started talking to him right away about what to do with money, he most probably would have listened to her. He certainly seemed to be listening to everything she told him right from the beginning. And that's the end of chapter 1. We'll pick up in the next video at chapter 2. Thank you.